AGRA's agri-food sector has recently faced numerous shocks, leading us to rethink how we produce, distribute, and consume our food. The business as usual model cannot work anymore. We must be strategic and deliberate in our approach for us to meet the Sustainable Development Goal by 2030. That is within the coming or next 8 years. In my travel around the continent, including Burkina Faso, where the minister is a living witness, I have encountered firsthand the hope and challenge farmers and entrepreneurs have been facing. I have also heard here at this AGRF summit that there is a political willingness to move towards building food systems. And many, especially young people, are advocating passionately for change in diets and change in how we produce and consume food sustainably. I'm sure we will hear the first hand this afternoon. I want to be very clear that the only solution for Africa is to transform its food systems, to put the continent onto a sustainable development pathway. Our experience on the continent as AGRA and the UN Food Systems Summit showed us how this must be done. We have also been deeply informed by the need to learn, to pick the best approaches to what the emerging evidence tells us. That is including from our own farmers. And it is this thinking that has informed the development of AGRA's new strategy. What does this new strategy mean for AGRA? We are concentrating on 2 areas of work from our last strategy. First, seeds, which are so crucial for farmers. We want to help the countries we work with to develop functioning seed systems. We want farmers to be able to gain and retain the access to right seed at the right price and the right time. Secondly, we have learned over the years that for maximum impact, we have to rally behind governments which have the best opportunity to lead the food system transformation. In any country, if the government is not a driving seat, we believe that success will be lagging. We will continue to do this, to put in place the best policies that support farmers and smallholder enterprises and attract investment. What areas of work are we developing further? We have been learning our lesson and responding to the needs that are so clearly out there. We are expanding our work in sustainable farming. As you all know, the climate change calamities are coming time and again in a very short period of time, from one season to the other, as you also, journalists, people of press, witnessed. This will help farmers and communities to build the sustainability of their business and lives through the land, water, and farming that they need. We have also learned from our last strategy that markets and trade are critical components of the transformation. We are now sharpening our focus, knowing farmers and SMEs depend heavily on markets to sell their produce. Finally, our new strategy will focus on 3 critical areas of change, with climate change at the center. We are becoming more deliberate on our gender, youth, and inclusion work. And we are keen on transforming African diets to make sure that everyone has access to affordable and nutritionally diverse diets. All this work, of course, comes with a cost. And we are seeking $550 million to fund this strategy. On this note, we would particularly like to thank our partners, our resource partners, and above all, our African partner governments and our smallholder farmers.
I'm thinking that maybe the best way to come at this is to make it, put it in everyday life. What the work AGRA does, how I see the work AGRA does, how it plays in everyday life. When I was growing up, and many of you maybe have grown up in rural areas, you know that we planted beans, we grew maize, we grew all those things. And you know how much we harvested. When I went to university, I met improved seeds. I saw that actually in the same area we were growing half a ton. Do you know katumani? A variety that is very short, that when it does very well, gives you half a ton. When it does very well, gives you half a ton per hectare. Then I realized that there are all sorts of varieties out there that in the same area for the same energy could give you 5 metric tons. So that was like night and day, because all you need probably is half a ton to eat, to feed your family. That means you have 4.5 metric tons to sell. So that is an extremely important part of what AGRA does. Recognizing that we can change farmers' lives just by helping them have access to the seeds that can change their lives. Of course, it's not just seeds. It needs good agronomy. It needs good use of fertilizers. And it needs water. Until now, we are all using rain-fed agriculture. So when Kofi Annan and other partners launched AGRA, the AGRA's conversation started when he was still in the UN. And the issue was, why is Africa so behind? How do we change things? So, and everybody said it must be the Africans don't have access to technologies. Must be the reason. And we know that. So when he said, but there are so many mistakes that have been made around technologies, is it possible that we think about it as a uniquely African green revolution that is not looking to make the same mistakes that other people have made, but really focuses on the opportunities that Africa offers, start with the commodities that Africa grows. Last night you saw His Excellency launching the Bean Challenge with the Rwandan bean, sending the Rwandan bean to the rest of the world, challenging the rest of the world to eat and grow beans. But that bean is iron fortified. That beans use 4.5 metric tons per hectare. Right? So that bean has real value for a farmer that grows it. So it's technologies like that that can change farmers' lives and move them into mainstream economies. That's what we do. That's what we try to do, to create systems that allow those technologies to reach farmers by investing in SMEs, as you've seen us do here in Rwanda, and by investing in national research systems that can actually support the ecosystem so that farmers can access them. So that is what we did in our first strategy. But you can't do that unless you have scientists. Part of what we did is train scientists. When I was in the Ministry of Agriculture, we actually didn't have breeders in Iraq. The breeders we have today were trained by the support of AGRA, which we are extremely grateful for. So it's that work now that we are preparing for. Forward, you heard my chair talk about the things we are going to do. To avoid being overwhelmed, it's a big sector. We try to continue finding areas we can do well. But also we try to find ways we can bring things together. So for me, if there's any one thing that is really significantly different, it's also how we think about partnerships. Recognizing that as AGRA, we can only do so much. But if we build strong partnerships with other people that are trying to deliver, we can go very far. That's why we don't do breeding now anymore. We depend on the CGIR to do the breeding. And we focus on what is happening at country level. These partnerships is why we are here today, so that we can show and showcase what countries, now even as we talk, I think the CEO forum was just happening. The D room is also going on, so that we can give countries an opportunity to meet CEOs, to go to the D room, to talk about opportunities in their own countries and be able to provide visibility of what can happen at country level. So part of all that is embedded into our strategy, and what we are trying to do is to make sure that partnerships becomes our DNA as we go forward. We will end with food. We started with agriculture. We will end with food, recognizing that we really need to focus, like the chair has said, on food systems, not just agriculture. Because we can't do an agriculture that deteriorates the environment. We can't do an agriculture that does not appreciate that the right food is as important as food. It can't just be food. So that's why food system is important. But also you can't do an agriculture that doesn't support SMEs, that doesn't support trade and move our economy forward. So I will end it there for now, but I hope you now do have a sense of what our focus was about. The focus and the initiation, the reason to be was so that African farmers can have a system that delivers good quality seeds to them, that delivers good quality fertilizers to them, that has a mechanism of delivering extension. And today we think about how all those things can be integrated. We focused on doing all those things individually and doing research and making sure that they happen. Today, we are so much focused again on how we bring it together through our own integration, but also integration of our own business lines, but also through integrating with others, through the partnerships I've talked about. So thank you for being here. We'll be looking to answer your questions.
We have some strategic sector we want to develop. This is the poultry farming, the chicken raising, because in the past, our country was really a huge producer of chickens, but this sector was impacted by the avian flu, and we really need to support the smallholders in these systems to develop this sector. We have a potential in the milk sector, but we still import 90% of our milk. And we think that there is a potential to develop in this sector. Our idea is really to integrate livestock and crop productions. And to do that, we think that we should also develop the production of forage, to introduce the forage production in the cropping systems to allow the farmers to easily feed the animals. And maybe first we will need to develop the seed sector, the forage seed sector, before we go to the development of the forage production at a large scale. In addition, we want to also focus on neglected crops, because we think that if you want to be more resilient in terms of food security, we also have to diversify, and we have the potentials to diversify and really to be more resilient regarding climate change. This is important. We have some crops that we can develop, root and tuber crops particularly. And recently, I had discussions with our researcher, and we have also potential to develop wheat production. In the past, we used to produce wheat. The potential is there. We have varieties, because recently we faced the bread crisis in Burkina Faso, and we think that we will develop the wheat production starting this year, and then to also diversify our food products. And then we expect support from AGRA and also all the partners. And finally, we want to really focus on developing irrigations to really minimize the risk of the climate. So that are our expectation from AGRA and all the partners. And really thank you, and we expect to really benefit from these new strategies AGRA is going to implement. Thanks.